IBC Chairman of Chebukati, together with Abdi Gulie and Boya Mulu, the commissioners of IBC, will their tenure will come to an end tomorrow, and we'd love you to be part of this discussion. How do you rate his performance of IBC Chairman of Chebukati as the IBC Chair? You can talk to us. Our Twitter handle is at HopeTV_KE, and at Kennedy Kimani_ is my Twitter handle. The hashtag to use is HopeTV Newswatch. How do you rate the performance of IBC Chair of Chebukati as his tenure comes to an end tomorrow? Now, in studio, I'm joined by constitutional lawyer George Ogubi, who will be helping us understand and get into the intrigues of IBC for the past 6 years and what to expect in the future. Karibu sana wakili.
Thank you very much, Kennedy.
So let's go straight into it. I mean, in your own opinion, how do you rate the performance of IBC Chair of Chebukati for the past 6 years?
That's a very interesting question. That's a question that can be answered in many perspectives or in different aspects. For example, those who were in support of His Excellency, the President's team, that is the Kenya Kwanza, will actually perhaps rate the performance of IBC Chairperson Wafula Chebukati at perhaps even 10 out of 10, if I put it on a scale of between 1 and 10. And perhaps those who are not supporting that side of the political divide, that is the Azimio side, perhaps would want to give a low score. But personally for me, and the events and the 3 elections that the chairperson of the IBC, that is Wafula Chebukati, has been able to preside, perhaps in my own personal opinion, I would give him a solid 6. A solid 6 out of 10.
Yes. Well, Wakili, we've seen the commission having been split in 2 times. In 2017, we saw the likes of Rosalina Kombe quitting the IBC. In 2022, we also saw the division between Chebukati and the likes of Irene Cherera. I mean, Juliana Cherera, that is. What's the issue with IBC, the commissions? I mean, why do we see all these divisions in the commission during the elections?
Well, perhaps that is why I have given the IBC chair a solid 6, because those were some of the issues that perhaps questioned perhaps his leadership, bringing a team together and having a harmonious way of doing things at the commission. What we saw in the August polls last year, 2022, a split in the commission was not the first time that kind of situation has happened under the chairmanship of Wafula Chebukati. It happened, as you've said, in 2017, and there was a big split, despite the fact that in 2017, there having been that split, the commissioners who are on the other side happened to have said that the elections were conducted constitutionally, they were free and fair, despite them having issues. And when you look at the issues they picked up with the chairperson of the commission, Wafula Chebukati, they were citing leadership issues and not necessarily questions around the elections. But to contrary to what happened in August of 2022, other than questioning the leadership of the chairperson of the commission, we saw issues arising in terms of his leadership and how he has conducted himself throughout the electoral process. So those are some of the issues that when you talk about, you cannot then be able to give the chairman of the IBC a 10 over 10 in terms of his performance as the chair.
Well, many have said the IBC of late has been so politically divided. You know, I mean, why do we see the commissioners taking sides during elections, and yet they're supposed to be so independent? Are they really independent?
Well, one thing I have always said, and when you look at my previous presentation in this channel, is that I have always looked at this word independence in the aspect of interdependence. So when we talk about independence, yes, the law, the acts of parliament, the constitution provides for independent commissions, provides for separation of powers, provides for the system of checks and balances. But by the end of the day, the independence that we talk about, I look at it in the form of interdependence. But why the sharp division politically? Why the sharp, distinct opinions when it comes to the Electoral Commission? If you heard the words of the chairperson of the IEBC today while addressing I think the post-election meeting that they had today at Safari Park, you realize that the chairperson of the IBC cited some of the issues which he thought, or some of the issues which he thinks really undermine the independence of the commission. And some of them he cited and said there were high levels of bribery, there were high levels of intimidation. He also talked about some of his staff losing their lives. You saw what happened in Embakasi. So when you look at the things that he has cited, perhaps I would want to, I would lean towards saying that indeed when you bring in these external factors, the political interference, then at that point we pierce into the independence of the commission, and therefore we cannot have a commission that perhaps will deliver what we call a free and fair election.
Well, let's look at Chebukati's era. And we've seen, just in the recent concluded elections, the 4 commissioners who disputed the results. I mean, what's their fate now that 3 of them resigned from their positions, but Irene Masid, I understand that she's still in, she refused to resign. What's the fate of these 4 IBC commissioners?
Well, I think their fate has already been determined. Once you resign, of course, you've already expressed your interest that you no longer want to serve in the capacity in which you are appointed to serve. And for the one commissioner who still remains to defend her position, we are waiting to see, because that is still a matter before the tribunal that was formed by His Excellency the President. But in the future, we wish to see what perhaps will become of her, whether she will be successful in her defense, or whether the petitioners will succeed in having the particular commissioner ousted from office. But in a nutshell, perhaps what you might be looking at and asking is that now that the commission seems to, now that the chair and the other 2 commissioners, their tenure is ending tomorrow, what then happens to the commission? It seems that like the commission will not have a commissioner to run. Okay. The position is that there can be no vacuum, and until another commission is constituted or another chairperson is appointed by the president, then we will see a bit of the current chairperson of Fula Chebukati and perhaps the other 2 commissioners still continuing in office to ensure that administrative works within the commissions are going on. But of course, they'll have limited powers as to what they can and cannot do while they are still in office, even past their tenure. So it will be very interesting to see, because we are still waiting for the bill that is set to be discussed. I've just gotten information that the Senate has convened a special sitting to discuss the bill that was tabled by, I think, being fronted by His Excellency the President, to have the composition of the team that will be charged with selecting the new commissioners. Once the bill is passed by Parliament, then that process for having new commissioners will proceed.
Well, there have been issues about, issues of law. Let's say tomorrow Chebukati is going to complete his tenure. For the common mwananchi, will there be a lacuna, when Chebukati is not in the office and yet there is a by-election, let's say, in a certain constituency? I mean, who is going to conduct this by-election, knowing that the era of Chebukati has already come to an end?
Well, I have just stated that there can be no vacuum. Even if the chairperson of the IEBC and the other two commissioners' tenure ends tomorrow, they will still remain in office until, because when you look at the provisions of the law, especially when it comes to public offices, the law usually on most occasions does not contemplate a vacuum or perhaps what you've referred to as a lacuna, because administrative works must go on, decisions must be made, and as you've rightfully put it, if a by-election is to be held, it is still the same commission, but now they will have limited. There are certain things which the law might not permit them to do, and there are certain things that the law, especially when it comes to a presidential election, I think the law is well settled. It has to be a substantive commission. It has to be declared by a substantive chairperson. But one who holds it temporarily, they will do so until another office comes into force.
Okay, so in short, Chebukati will still act as a chair until the next IBC chairman is appointed?
Yes, because they have to hand over to the new commission that will be appointed by His Excellency the President after the selection process has been complete. So we will still see more of the chairperson and perhaps the other two commissioners and even the CEO of the commission. We'll see more of them even after tomorrow, because until another commission comes, then the current chairperson will still hold office.
So kindly take us through maybe the process of selecting the next IBC commission, knowing that 3 commissioners have already resigned, so meaning that only Irene Masit is the only commissioner who has not resigned, with the 2 commissioners and Chebukati, their term coming to an end. What's next now? What's the process? How is the process like for selecting the other commissioners?
First of all, the legal position of Masit, who has not resigned, who is still facing the tribunal, is that she has been suspended. Immediately the president received the petition from Parliament. What the president then did before forming that tribunal was to officially suspend these commissioners, who will now face the tribunal and perhaps defend their case. And let us see what those petitioners who filed that petition, what they have presented before the tribunal. Away from that, the process is that even before the term of the chair, especially when you talk about the chairperson of the IBC, what is supposed to be done or what happens is that even 6 months, I think there are 2 processes which the law looks at. 6 months before the end of the tenure of the current chair of the IBC, the process for getting a replacement must start through the president forming, giving the selection panel the mandate to now advertise and have the interview so that the next chairperson is in place. The other process that the law envisages is what the president did last year, I think around November or October, where he gazetted the vacancy.
Actually, the 21st of October.
Yeah, the 21st of October, where the president declared the vacancy of the chairperson of the IBC. And once that declaration is done, what is now expected is that the selection panel is again constituted by the president, the advertisement, shortlisting is done, and the normal process of interviewing, shortlisting, and eventually forwarding names to the president of the preferred candidate or candidates who are supposed to replace the previous commissioners. But we have not seen that happening because, of course, 14 days since the vacancy was declared has passed. But just as I've mentioned, that has not been able to happen because there is a bill pending before the 2 houses of parliament where there is a proposed amendment to the act in terms of who constitutes the selection panel, where the chairperson, the vice chairperson, and the other 4 or rather 5 commissioners will be selected from. So I think once that process is done, once the two houses are done discussing that bill that is proposing an amendment in the Act, then I think the process should be smooth in terms of now getting a replacement for the commissioners.
Well, Wakili, you said you rate Chebukati at 6 out of 10. Now we are looking forward to a new IBC commission that will steer the 2027 elections. I mean, what are you looking forward to the next commission of IBC?
I think the next commission and the next chair of the IBC will sit again in a very we will have to fit in very big and difficult shoes, because you sit in a commission where it is very difficult to make everybody around you happy, because in every political cycle and after every declaration, there are those who will be satisfied and there are those who will not be satisfied. But perhaps just to mention a few shortfalls of what I saw in the 2022 August election and why I'm saying I am rating the chair of IBC at 6. The issue around transparency. When you look at this previous general election, there was a streaming that had initially started before the declaration was done. But then eventually towards the end and the tail end, when eventually the results were declared, the live streaming of results stopped. And you know, those are the questions that perhaps Kenyans would want to be. Those who are dissatisfied with the results would say there are issues around transparency, there are issues around integrity, and I think even the next chairperson of the IBC should work in a way as to bring, to have a commission that will work as one. We don't want to see a situation whereby, again, the commission will be split right in the middle and eventually let all the commissioners own the results as will be declared, so that we avoid these awkward situations whereby, you know, many Kenyans will ask, okay, fine, you are telling us this, but why for giving a dissenting opinion? Why are they saying they are not agreeing to whatever it is that you are going to declare? So unity, I think the next chairperson of the commission must bring that kind of unity, because why I'm saying this is that look at even what the Supreme Court did. I'm actually tempted to say that even for the first time, we did not see individual judges reading their separate judgments. We saw a Supreme Court that gave a unanimous verdict as to the conduct of the 2022 general election.
Well, Wakili, let me sample a bit of comments by people who are watching us. And remember, you can join in the conversation at HopeTV_KE on Twitter, at Kennedy Kimani_. The hashtag to use is HopeTV Newswatch. And at Whiteman, he says the fact that the first election was done and Chebukati looked like, well, he went ahead and made sure that what was mentioned in the 2017 election petition did not come up in the second is a story of redemption. The fact that we had a peaceful election has a lot to do with what he did, and he goes home with the clean hands. The next chair will have a perfect template to build up on for the next general election. He says that Chebukati goes home with clean hands. Do you agree with the same sentiment?
Like I told you when I started, when you started this conversation, I told you sometimes you want to rate somebody's performance depending on which side you lean on. But generally speaking, I would want to agree with him that there was no post-election chaos or violence. And so he was able to manage the election in a way that really avoided such kind of scenarios post the election. And again, even why one would agree with those sentiments and why one would say that he's going home having held his head high and having done the country proud is that even past the declaration, and those perhaps who doubted him, the Supreme Court of this country vindicated him. And that is why even today he said that he has got no regrets and that what he did as per what he's mandated to do by the Constitution of Kenya. So those perhaps could be one of the many or few reasons or why the chair of IBC would pat himself on the back and say, I did Kenya proud.
He did Kenya proud.
Yes.
Let me sample one more tweet as we conclude the interview. At David_Odamo on Twitter says, to be honest, he had his stand. Once he settled for something, you can't persuade him.
Well, that should be the character of somebody who perhaps sits in such an office, because many would think that the IBC usually goes quiet for perhaps 4 and then reactivates its activities towards the election. So that's a character that he showed. And the happenings at Bomas, if there is anything to go by, I think he stood by what he believed in. And even post the declaration and post the election, he has always said that he stood by what he knew is the truth, and he stood by what he also knows that the law allows him to do. And therefore, to the chairperson of the IEBC, he felt that he's doing everything as per the law. And if that is anything to go by, then I believe that he has virtue.
He has virtues.
And once, exactly.
Actually, the president said he was actually the hero of the 2022 elections. Yeah, and with that, I believe we come to the tail end of this interview. Many thanks, Wakili, for coming through the interview. What do you expect now, moving forward, for the IBC? I remember Chebukati saying that they have set the pace for the next commission.
Well, indeed, it is true. They have set the pace. They have set the bar. And as I've said, there are many reasons to give credit. Of course, conducting a general election countrywide is not an easy task. And he has said, and we saw as Kenyans, that even the IEBC itself, some of them had sleepless nights. Some of the staff, some of the employees at IEBC had sleepless nights. They did a good job in terms of conducting the elections and eventually declaring the results. But again, moving forward, so that a proper IEBC is constituted, we wish to call upon the two houses of parliament to quickly discuss the bill that has been tabled before them in terms of the composition of the selection panel that will eventually bring in the new commissioners in the commission so that work begins. Let us not wait. Let work begin, and let the commission start preparing for the elections come 2027.
All right, what a way to end the interview at that point. Many thanks to you again, Wakili, for coming through. And to you for watching the interview. See you after this short commercial break. I'll be back with the business and sports news.